Commander Jake Morrison walked into the giant crystal building on Nexus Prime with heavy steps. His boots made small clicking sounds on the smooth floor as he carried a metal briefcase filled with data about weapons that could destroy worlds. Around him, creatures from 47 different planets filled the massive hall. Some had tentacles instead of arms. Others looked like walking crystals or floating balls of light. A few resembled giant insects with many eyes. All of them were much older and more advanced than humans, or so they believed. The Galactic Defense Council had ruled space for thousands of years before Earth even learned how to build spaceships. These aliens had weapons that could melt steel with beams of light. They had shields that could stop nuclear bombs. Their technology was so advanced that most of them thought humans were like children, playing with sticks and stones. That was exactly the problem Jake had come to fix. He reached the speaking platform in the center of the hall. The platform lifted him up so all the aliens could see him clearly. Translation machines buzzed and hummed as they turned his words into thousands of different alien languages. Some aliens heard his voice as musical notes. Others felt vibrations in their skin. A few received his message as patterns of light. "Great Council members," Jake began in a steady voice. "Humanity asks this council to ban electromagnetic acceleration weapons immediately. We call these weapons railguns. They are more dangerous than anything this galaxy has ever seen." The Zephyrian ambassador started making loud clicking sounds with his beak. Jake had learned this was how Zephyrians laughed. The ambassador's purple tentacles waved in the air like he had heard the funniest joke in the universe. "Human Morrison," the Zephyrian said through his translator, "your people have been part of this council for only 50 years. The Vorthan Empire has kept peace in this galaxy for 3,000 years using plasma weapons. Why should we fear simple metal bullets?" Dr. Lisa Parker stepped forward and activated a holographic display. She was humanity's best weapons expert and had spent years studying what railguns could do. The hologram showed a small metal rod being shot from a long tube. The rod moved so fast it looked like a streak of light. When it hit a thick wall of the strongest alien armor, it went right through like the armor was made of paper. It went through 10 more walls behind the first one without slowing down. "The science is simple," Lisa said in a clear voice. "Speed equals destruction. The faster something moves, the more damage it does when it hits something. At high enough speeds, it does not matter how small the object is. A tiny grain of sand moving close to light speed could crack a moon in half." The representative from the ethereal collective pulsed with bright red colors. This was how his species showed they disagreed with something. The ethereal looked like a ghost made of glowing gas trapped inside a clear crystal shell. "Humans think too much about old ideas," the ethereal said. His voice sounded like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. "Our phase shift technology makes such primitive weapons useless. We can make our ships exist in a different dimension. Your metal bullets would pass right through us." Captain Mike Torres, representing the human military, stepped up to the platform. He was a big man with scars on his hands from many battles. His uniform was simple compared to the fancy robes and crystal armor worn by the alien military leaders. "With respect to all of you," Mike said in a voice that carried across the huge hall, "we have tested our railguns against every defense system in this galaxy. We got the information from your own public databases. Railguns do not care about your energy shields. They do not care about your phase shift technology. They do not care about your quantum armor. Physics is physics, no matter how advanced you think you are." Mike activated his own hologram. It showed computer simulations of railgun projectiles hitting different types of alien defenses. Each simulation ended the same way. The defenses failed. The projectiles kept going. Anything behind the defenses was destroyed. "A railgun works by using powerful magnets to push a metal object faster and faster down a long tube," Mike explained. "The magnets can make the object move at 90% of light speed. When something that heavy hits something at that speed, the energy released is like a nuclear bomb going off in a space the size of your thumb." The crystalline hive mind sent their thoughts directly into the translation system. Their message appeared as words of light floating in the air above the assembly. "Human concepts are limited by human understanding. Our crystal matrices can absorb and redirect kinetic energy. We have done this for millions of years. Your weapons pose no threat to civilized species." Ambassador Sarah Kim stood up from the human delegation section. She had been watching the alien reactions carefully. Every species in the hall showed the same attitude. They thought humans were too young and too primitive to understand real warfare. "Honored representatives," Sarah said, "we are not trying to ban these weapons because we want an advantage with our current technology. We are trying to ban them because we are terrified of what will happen when someone uses them. We have run the calculations. We have done the tests. If someone builds enough railguns and uses them against populated worlds, they could end civilization as we know it. The Aquatic Federation representative made deep gurgling sounds that the translators turned into words. The aquatic looked like a giant jellyfish floating in a tank of blue water. Young humans fear what they do not understand. The Federation has protected our ocean worlds for 6,000 years. Our bioelectric barriers can stop any attack. We do not need new restrictions on weapons technology. Dr. Lisa Parker tried one more time. She showed images of what railgun impacts could do to planets. She explained how the kinetic energy could crack continental shelves, boil oceans, and throw so much dust into the atmosphere that stars would disappear for years. She showed mathematical proofs that no known technology could stop a projectile moving at relativistic speeds. The aliens listened politely. Some took notes. A few asked technical questions. But Jake could see in their eyes tentacles, crystals, and energy patterns that none of them really believed the humans were right. The vote was called exactly 1 hour after Jake had started speaking. The Galactic Council voted on whether to restrict electromagnetic acceleration weapons immediately. 46 species voted against the restriction. Only humanity voted in favor of it. As the alien delegates began leaving the hall, many of them made their species equivalent of laughter. The Vorthans rang like bells. The Zephyrians clicked their beaks. The crystallines flashed bright colors. They all thought the humans were worried about nothing. Jake packed up his briefcase and walked toward the exit with Sarah and the rest of the human delegation. His shoulders felt heavy, not from the briefcase but from the weight of knowing what was coming. "Sarah," he said quietly as they reached their transport ship, "make sure everything we said today is recorded and stored in multiple locations. Every warning, every simulation, every piece of evidence. When this comes back to destroy them, I want the galaxy to know that we tried to prevent it." Sarah nodded and looked back at the crystal building where the most powerful species in the galaxy had just made the biggest mistake in their history. "Jake, how long do you think we have before someone actually builds these weapons?" Jake started the engines of their small ship and looked out at the busy space traffic around Nexus Prime. Thousands of ships from hundreds of worlds moved in peaceful patterns, protected by laws and treaties that had kept the galaxy stable for millennia. "Not long enough," he said. 3 years passed since the failed council meeting on Nexus Prime. Dr. Alan Beck worked alone in his laboratory deep inside Luna Base, the human research station built into the moon's surface. The lab was cold and quiet except for the humming of machines and the soft beeping of computers. Alan had spent every day for the past year trying to make railguns more powerful. He wanted to prove that humans had been right to warn the galaxy. Alan stared at the readings on his computer screen. The numbers made no sense. According to his instruments, his experimental railgun had just shot a tungsten rod at 98% of light speed. This should have been impossible. The amount of energy needed to reach such speeds would normally require the power of a small star. "Katie, come here right now," Alan called to his research partner, Dr. Katie Walsh. She was working on power systems in the next room. "You have to see what just happened." Katie ran into the main lab, her footsteps echoing off the metal walls. She looked at Alan's computer screen and her mouth fell open. "Alan, this cannot be correct. Check your instruments. Something must be broken." "I already checked everything 3 times, Alan said. His hand shook as he pointed at different displays. The power readings, the velocity measurements, the energy output. Everything confirms it. We actually did it." Katie sat down hard in the nearest chair. "But look at these power consumption numbers. The railgun should have drained every reactor on Luna Base. Instead, it seems like it generated more energy than it used." Alan nodded and pulled up more data on his screen. "That is exactly what happened. The magnetic field compression created a feedback loop. The faster the projectile moves, the more energy the system produces. We accidentally built a perpetual acceleration device. Far across the galaxy, alien spy networks had been watching human weapons research for years. The hegemony of Krell was a military empire that had spent centuries conquering smaller species. Their spies were everywhere, including Luna Base. They had been stealing human technology, data, and sending it back to their homeworlds. General Rex Carter received an urgent message while he was reviewing defensive positions along the Outer Rim. The message came from human intelligence agents working deep in Krell space. What he read made his blood run cold. Rex immediately called Admiral Amy Foster for an emergency meeting. They met in a secure room beneath the military headquarters on Mars. The room had no windows and thick walls that blocked all electronic signals. "Amy, the Krell have our railgun technology," Rex said without any greeting. He placed a data tablet on the table between them. "Our agents managed to steal these images from their military networks." Amy looked at the photographs on the tablet. They showed huge industrial complexes on 12 different Krell worlds. Each complex had thousands of workers building long metal tubes and massive power generators. The design was clearly based on human railgun blueprints. "How long have they been building these?" Amy asked. "Our best estimate is 18 months, maybe longer. The Krell do not build anything small. If they are making railguns, they plan to make thousands of them." Amy stood up and walked to a wall display showing the galaxy map. Red dots marked known Krell territories. Blue dots showed planets with large civilian populations. Too many red dots were close to blue ones. "Rex, have the Krell achieved the same breakthrough that Alan did? Can their railguns reach near light speeds?" "We do not know yet, but we have to assume they can. The Krell captured our top scientists during the border war 5 years ago. Some of those scientists worked on electromagnetic acceleration projects. On Earth, President Laura Thompson was awakened at 3 in the morning by her security chief. She was rushed to the emergency bunker beneath Geneva, where the Human Defense Cabinet was already gathering. The bunker was deep underground and protected by layers of the strongest materials humans could make. "Ladies and gentlemen," Laura said, as she took her seat at the head of the table, "I have been told that the Krell hegemony has weaponized our railgun technology. Rex, tell us what we know." General Carter activated a holographic display showing the Krell industrial complexes. "Intelligence confirms that the Krell have been mass-producing railguns for at least 18 months. We believe they plan to use these weapons against the Galactic Council." Dr. Alan Beck had been brought to the meeting via secure video link from Luna Base. His face on the screen looked tired and worried. "Mr. President, maybe this will finally make the galaxy understand what we tried to tell them. The Krell demonstration might prove our point." "Alan," Admiral Foster interrupted. "When the Krell demonstrate these weapons, they will not target military bases or empty space. They will use them on civilian populations to create maximum fear. Railguns do not leave survivors." The room became very quiet. Everyone understood what Amy meant. A railgun strike on a populated world would kill millions of people instantly. The kinetic energy would cause massive earthquakes, tidal waves, and volcanic eruptions. Entire continents could be destroyed by a single shot. "How many railguns do we think the Krell have built?" asked General Patricia Hayes, commander of the human space fleet. Rex looked at his intelligence reports. "Conservative estimate is 500 mobile platforms. Each platform appears to carry multiple railgun systems. They could have enough firepower to threaten every major world in known space." Dr. Katie Walsh, who had joined the video conference from Luna Base, raised her hand. "I have been analyzing the stolen Krell data. Their railgun design is actually more advanced than our original prototype. They have solved the power generation problem using a different method than we discovered." "What does that mean in practical terms?" President Thompson asked. "It means their railguns might be even more dangerous than ours," Katie replied. "Their projectiles could reach 99% of light speed. At that velocity, a single shot could crack a planet's core." Colonel Frank Mason, who had been listening quietly from his position at the intelligence briefing table, finally spoke up. "Madam President, we need to warn the Galactic Council immediately. Even if they ignored us before, they need to know what is coming." Laura shook her head slowly. "Frank, we tried warning them 3 years ago. They voted against us 46-1. Why would they listen now?" "Because now we have proof," Frank replied. "We have photographs, technical data, intelligence reports. We can show them exactly what the Krell are building." Admiral Foster looked at the galaxy map display. It might be too late for warnings. "If our intelligence is correct, the Krell are almost ready to begin their campaign. They have been moving their fleets toward the core systems for weeks." Dr. Beck's image on the screen flickered as the communication link experienced interference. "There is something else you all need to know. I have been monitoring electromagnetic signatures across the galaxy. The Krell are not the only ones building railguns now." Everyone in the bunker turned to look at the screen. President Thompson leaned forward. "What do you mean, Alan?" 3 other species have begun electromagnetic acceleration projects in the past 6 months. The Nexari Confederacy, the Steel Brotherhood, and even some independent colonies. The technology is spreading faster than we anticipated. The meeting continued for 4 more hours. Plans were made to contact the Galactic Council, to increase human military readiness and to develop defensive measures against railgun attacks. But everyone in the room knew that they were probably too late. As the meeting ended, President Thompson remained in her chair while the others filed out. She stared at the galaxy map, watching the red and blue dots that represented civilizations that had no idea what was coming for them. General Carter was the last to leave. He stopped at the door and looked back at the president. "Laura, when this starts, it is going to be unlike anything the galaxy has ever seen. Entire worlds will die in seconds." Laura nodded without taking her eyes off the map. "Rex, 3 years ago we tried to prevent this. Now all we can do is try to survive it and help clean up the mess afterward." The first Krell attack fleet departed their home system 12 hours later. The warning came at exactly 3:47 in the morning, Galactic Standard Time. Every communication device in known space received the same message at the same moment. Radio signals, quantum transmissions, subspace communications, even primitive electromagnetic broadcasts all carried the same terrifying announcement. The signal was so powerful that it burned through military, jamming systems and defensive networks like they were made of paper. Citizens of the galaxy, the mechanical voice of Warlord, Thaxmon announced in every known language. For too long, the weak have ruled over the strong. Today, the hegemony shows you why the age of council control ends now. Witness the power of true warfare. Captain Dan Rivera was aboard the UES Defiance, humanity's most advanced stealth ship, hidden just outside the Altair star system when the demonstration began. His mission was simple but dangerous: watch everything and record it all. The human government needed proof of what was about to happen. "Sir, I am reading massive electromagnetic buildup on the Krell dreadnought," Lieutenant Emma Stone called from her sensor station. Her voice was steady, but her hands shook as she watched the energy readings climb higher than anything she had ever seen. "Power signature is beyond our measurement scale." Dan activated every recording system on the ship. Cameras, sensors, energy detectors, gravitational wave monitors. Everything that could capture data was turned on and focused on the Krell vessel. "All stations, document everything. The galaxy is about to learn what we tried to warn them about 3 years ago." The target was Kepler Station, the largest civilian trading hub in the galaxy. It orbited Altair Prime like a small metal moon, home to over 2 million beings from 60 different species. The station was a symbol of galactic cooperation and peace. Families lived there. Children played in its parks. Markets sold goods from thousands of worlds. Its defensive shields were rated to stop the most powerful weapons ever built by any civilized species. The Krell dreadnought fired once. The railgun projectile was a tungsten rod no bigger than a human thumb. It had been accelerated to 98.7% of light speed. When it struck Kepler Station's energy shields, it passed through them as if they did not exist. The shields that had cost billions of credits and taken decades to perfect failed in less than 1,000th of a second. The kinetic energy, released when the projectile hit the station, was equal to a star exploding. But instead of spreading out over millions of kilometers, all that energy was focused into a space smaller than a building. Kepler Station did not explode. It did not break apart. It simply stopped existing. "Jesus Christ," Emma whispered as she stared at her instruments. "Sir, the energy release is still expanding. It is affecting the magnetic field of the planet below us. Where Kepler Station had been, there was now only empty space and expanding rings of superheated plasma. 2 million people had died in the time it takes to blink. The shockwave from the impact was spreading outward at nearly light speed, destroying everything in its path." On the bridge of the GCS Harmony, flagship of the Galactic Defense Fleet, Admiral Zethkal of the Vorthan Empire watched his tactical displays with growing horror. His crystalline features, normally bright blue, had turned a pale gray color that indicated deep shock among his species. Dr. Paul Anderson, the human military advisor assigned to the Harmony, stood quietly beside the Admiral's command chair. He had been trying to warn the Galactic Fleet about railgun weapons for months. Now his warnings had become reality in the most terrible way possible. "Admiral," Paul said softly, 3 years ago, Commander Morrison warned the Council that this exact thing would happen. We tried to tell everyone what these weapons could do." Zethkal's voice was barely a whisper when translated through the universal communicator. "Your people knew. You tried to save us from ourselves. We called you primitive and fearful. How many more stations can the Krell destroy? Paul looked at the tactical display showing Krell fleet positions throughout the galaxy. Sir, our intelligence suggests they have enough firepower to destroy every major population center in known space. They have been building these weapons for years while we argued about whether they were dangerous. The second demonstration came exactly 6 hours after the first. This time the target was not a space station. The agricultural world of Harvest Prime had a population of 4 billion beings and supplied food to dozens of nearby systems. It was protected by planetary shields that could deflect comet impacts and solar flares. The Krell aimed their railgun at the planet itself. Commander Nina Roberts watched from her position aboard the UES Vigilance, another human stealth ship positioned in the outer system. Her orders were the same as Dan's: record everything for evidence. But no amount of training could have prepared her for what she was about to witness. The railgun projectile struck Harvest Prime's northern continent with the force of the asteroid that had killed the dinosaurs on ancient Earth. The impact cracked the planetary crust like an eggshell. Massive volcanoes erupted simultaneously across 3 continents. The atmosphere caught fire as superheated rock was thrown into space and fell back down as molten rain. Command, this is Roberts. Nina transmitted to Earth using quantum encryption. Harvest Prime is gone. 4 billion people dead in seconds. The Krell have just proven they can kill entire worlds with a single shot. The planet's death was visible across half the galaxy. The explosion was so bright that it briefly outshone the system's star. Gravitational waves from the impact rippled through nearby solar systems, causing earthquakes on worlds hundreds of light years away. Within minutes of Harvest Prime's destruction, panic spread across every civilized world. The Galactic Defense Council called an emergency session, but it dissolved into chaos before any decisions could be made. Species after species announced they were withdrawing their fleets to protect their home systems. The Ethereal Collective, beings of pure energy who had maintained galactic peace for millennia, flickered out of their crystal shells and fled to dimensions beyond physical space. The Aquatic Federation began evacuating their ocean worlds, fearing that railgun impacts could boil away their seas. Even the mighty Vorthan Empire started pulling their massive battle fleets back to defend only their most important planets. Colonel Frank Mason watched the emergency council session from humanity's observation deck above the main chamber. Alien representatives screamed at each other in dozens of languages. Some demanded immediate surrender to the Krell. Others called for mass evacuations of entire star systems. A few suggested abandoning this part of the galaxy completely. They are talking about running away from half of known space, Frank said to his aide, Major Kelly Brooks. 3 years ago, we could have prevented all of this if they had just listened. But Warlord Thaxmon was not finished with his demonstrations. His next transmission revealed the true scope of Krell ambitions and the hopelessness of resistance. The old order dies today. His voice echoed across every world in the galaxy. Submit to hegemony rule within 72 standard hours, or watch your worlds burn like Harvest Prime. Surrender your fleets and acknowledge Krell sovereignty. For those who choose to resist, remember what you have seen. Remember Kepler Station. Remember 4 billion dead on a world that thought it was safe. Captain Ryan Foster commanded a joint reconnaissance fleet, tasked with finding Krell production facilities. What his scouts discovered in the following hours sent waves of terror through every military command center in the galaxy. Admiral, Ryan reported during an emergency briefing, we have located 17 major railgun production facilities, but that is not the worst news. The Krell have been building mobile platforms, asteroid bases, converted cargo ships, even modified civilian vessels. Our count shows over 800 railgun systems deployed across 40 different star systems. The mathematics were simple and terrifying. The Krell had enough firepower to destroy every populated world, every space station, every military base, and every industrial center in the galaxy. They could end civilization with conventional weapons scattered across dozens of fleets. President Thompson addressed the Human Emergency Congress from her bunker deep beneath the mountains of Colorado. Fellow humans, our warnings were ignored. Now the galaxy faces extinction because of our own technology. The question we must answer is this: do we stand by and watch civilization collapse, or do we find a way to stop what we accidentally helped create? The session was interrupted by another Krell transmission. This one showed a live feed from orbit around the peaceful garden world of Serenity. Home to 12 billion beings, it was known throughout the galaxy for its beautiful cities and ancient libraries. The Krell dreadnought fired again. Serenity died as quickly and completely as Harvest Prime had. 12 billion lives ended in the time it took to say their names. The galaxy's greatest centers of art, literature, and philosophy became expanding clouds of superheated gas. By the time the transmission ended, half the civilized worlds in the galaxy had already sent surrender messages to the Krell. The other half were preparing for evacuation. The greatest civilization in galactic history was collapsing in less than 24 hours. But in his laboratory on Luna Base, Dr. Alan Beck was working on something that might change everything. The response was immediate and catastrophic. Within 6 hours of the Krell demonstrations, panic swept across every civilized world like a virus. The emergency session of the Galactic Defense Council turned into complete chaos as 47 different species all screamed at each other in languages that the translation systems could barely handle. Some demanded immediate surrender. Others called for mass evacuation of entire sectors. A few suggested abandoning this part of the galaxy entirely. Colonel Frank Mason watched from humanity's observation deck as the greatest civilization in galactic history collapsed in real time. Ancient alliances that had lasted for millennia fell apart in minutes. Trade agreements worth trillions of credits were abandoned. Military pacts that had kept peace for thousands of years became worthless pieces of digital data. They are talking about running away from half of known space, Frank told Major Kelly Brooks, his aide. 3 years ago, a simple vote could have prevented all of this. The ethereal collective announced their immediate withdrawal from all outer territories. Their energy forms flickered with distress patterns as they prepared to retreat to dimensions beyond physical space. They had maintained galactic peace for over 10,000 years, but railgun weapons could destroy even beings made of pure energy. The Aquatic Federation began the largest evacuation in galactic history. Their massive ocean worlds, home to billions of aquatic beings, started launching every spaceship they had. They feared that railgun strikes could boil away their seas and leave their people to die in the vacuum of space. Even the Vorthon Empire, masters of plasma technology and quantum warfare, pulled their mighty fleets back to defend only their core systems. Their crystalline ships, which had been the backbone of galactic defense for millennia, were suddenly as vulnerable as paper boats in a hurricane. But the Krell were not finished demonstrating their power. Warlord Thaxmon's next transmission came exactly 12 hours after Serenity had been destroyed. This time, the message was accompanied by tactical displays showing Krell fleet positions throughout the galaxy. "The old order dies today," Thaxmon announced. "Submit to hegemony rule within 60 hours, or join the dead worlds. Surrender your military fleets and acknowledge Krell's sovereignty over all inhabited systems. Resistance will be met with complete annihilation." Captain Ryan Foster led the Joint Fleet's reconnaissance wing on desperate missions to locate Krell production facilities. His small flotilla of fast ships darted through contested space, mapping enemy positions while trying to avoid detection. What they discovered made every military commander in the galaxy realize that conventional resistance was impossible. "Admiral," Ryan reported during an emergency video conference, "we have confirmed 23 major railgun production facilities, but the real problem is mobile deployment. The Krell have mounted railgun systems on converted cargo ships, modified space stations, and even hollowed-out asteroids. We estimate over 1,000 railgun platforms scattered across 50 star systems." The mathematics were simple and horrifying. The Krell had enough firepower to destroy every populated world, every space station, every military base, and every industrial center in civilized space. They could end galactic civilization in a matter of days. President Laura Thompson called an emergency session of humanity's Defense Council in the deep bunkers beneath the Rocky Mountains. The secure facility had been built to survive nuclear wars, but even it felt fragile when compared to the weapons now threatening the galaxy. "Fellow humans," Laura said to the assembled military and political leaders, "our technology is being used to destroy everything we hope to protect. The galaxy ignored our warnings, and now they face extinction. The question before us is simple. Do we stand by and watch civilization collapse, or do we find a way to stop the monster we accidentally created?" Senator Kelly Brooks stood up from her seat at the conference table. "Madame President, what can we realistically do? Our entire space fleet has maybe 50 ships. The major powers have thousands, and they are all running scared. How can humanity stop what we started? The answer came from an unexpected source. Dr. Alan Beck appeared on the main screen via secure transmission from his laboratory on Luna Base. He looked tired and stressed, but there was something new in his eyes. Hope. "I have found a way to neutralize railgun systems," Alan announced to the stunned silence of the room. "The same magnetic field principles that make them so efficient can be reversed. We can create disruption fields that prevent electromagnetic acceleration entirely." Admiral Amy Foster leaned forward in her chair. "How close do we need to get to deploy these disruption fields?" "That is the problem," Alan replied. "The field generators have limited range. We would need to get within 5,000 kilometers of their railgun installations. Against the Krell, that is essentially a suicide mission." General Rex Carter spoke up from his position at the strategic planning table. "Not necessarily. The galaxy has been so focused on big fleets and massive weapons that they have ignored our advances in stealth technology and covert operations. Our ships can get close to Krell installations without being detected." The plan that emerged from the 8-hour strategy session was audacious in its simplicity. Human stealth ships would penetrate deep into Krell space and deploy Beck's disruption fields at key production facilities. Simultaneously, the neutralization technology would be broadcast to every species in the galaxy, giving them the tools to defend against railgun attacks. Lieutenant Commander Alex Turner volunteered to lead the first wave of the operation. His stealth corvette, the UES Phantom, would target the primary Krell facility in the Kronos sector, the heart of their weapons production network. "Sir, Ensign," Beth Clark, his communications officer, asked during the final mission briefing. "What happens if the disruption fields do not work as expected? What if we cannot get close enough to deploy them?" Alex checked his mission chronometer and looked at his crew of 12 volunteers. Every one of them knew they were probably going to die in the next few hours. "Then we ram the facility with everything we have. One way or another, this ends today." Similar conversations were happening on 17 other human ships scattered across the galaxy. Each crew had volunteered for missions that had less than 10% chance of survival. They were going to fly into the heart of Krell space, past fleets of enemy warships, to get close enough to facilities protected by thousands of defensive weapons. Meanwhile, the galaxy continued its collapse. The Nexari Confederacy formally surrendered, after the Krell demonstrated their power by destroying an empty moon in their home system. The Steel Brotherhood, a warrior culture that had never retreated from any battle in their history, began evacuating their core worlds. On the peaceful research world of Academia Prime, Professor Helen Davis led the evacuation of the galaxy's greatest university. Millions of years of accumulated knowledge, art, and culture were being loaded onto transport ships as fast as possible. "We are abandoning everything our civilization has built," Helen said to her assistant as they watched ancient artifacts being packed into cargo containers. 10,000 years of progress destroyed in less than a week. But not everyone was giving up. Captain Susan Lee commanded the UES Wraith, one of the stealth ships assigned to the desperate mission. Her target was a Krell facility built inside a captured asteroid in the Vega system. "All stations prepare for insertion," Susan announced to her crew as they approached the heavily defended system. "Remember, we are not just fighting for humanity, we are fighting for every species in the galaxy." The Krell had not been idle during the panic they had created. Their fleets were moving toward major population centers, preparing for the final phase of their conquest. They planned to occupy the galaxy's most important worlds and use the populations as slaves to build even more weapons. Dr. Paul Anderson, still aboard the Galactic Defense Fleet flagship, watched as Admiral Zethkal prepared his fleet for what everyone knew would be their final battle. "Admiral," Paul said quietly, "if our mission fails, how long can you hold out against the Krell main fleet?" Zethkal's crystalline features pulsed with the dim colors that indicated resignation among his people. "Human Anderson, we will fight until our ships are destroyed. It is all we can do. Your people tried to warn us. We did not listen. Now we pay the price for our arrogance." The first wave of human stealth ships began their attack runs exactly 71 hours after the Krell ultimatum had been delivered. 18 small ships against an empire that had conquered half the galaxy. Commander Alex Turner's voice came across the tactical network as the UES Phantom began its final approach to the Kronos facility. All units, this is Turner. We are beginning our attack run. Whatever happens in the next few minutes, remember that we tried to warn them. Now we have to save them. The fate of galactic civilization hung in the balance as 18 human ships carrying Beck's disruption technology raced toward targets, defended by the most powerful military force in the galaxy. Behind them, the combined fleets of 46 species prepared for what might be the last battle in the history of civilized space. In his laboratory on Luna Base, Dr. Alan Beck monitored the mission through quantum communication links. His invention had started this war. Now it might be the only thing that The assault began at exactly 1200 hours Galactic Standard Time, across 17 different star systems simultaneously. Human stealth ships, invisible to Krell sensors and detection networks, penetrated the deepest layers of enemy space while the entire galaxy watched and waited for news that might determine whether civilization would survive or die. Commander Alex Turner's team reached their target first. The massive Krell production facility orbiting Kronos Prime looked like a mechanical spider built from black metal and glowing energy conduits. It bristled with defensive weapons that could destroy entire fleets, but none of them were designed to detect humanity's advanced stealth technology. Deploying. Disruption field in 3 seconds, announced Chief Engineer Robbie Phillips from his position at the field generator controls. His voice was steady despite the fact that they were less than 2,000 kilometers from enough firepower to crack planets. 2 seconds, 1 second mark. The effect was immediate and more devastating to the Krell operation than anyone had dared to hope. Every railgun system within 50,000 kilometers simply stopped working. The electromagnetic fields that enabled their weapons collapsed like soap bubbles. Power conduits that had carried enough energy to accelerate projectiles to near light speeds suddenly carried nothing but harmless electrical current. It worked. Alex breathed into his communications headset. All units, Beck's disruption field works perfectly. The Krell railguns are completely neutralized. But the Krell response was swift and filled with desperate fury. Unable to use their primary weapons, they immediately switched to conventional plasma cannons and began targeting civilian populations out of pure spite. If they could not rule the galaxy, they would destroy as much of it as possible. They are bombarding Nexus Prime with conventional weapons, reported Captain Susan Lee from her position aboard the UES Wraith. Plasma bombardment of population centers. They are trying to kill as many civilians as possible before we can stop them. The galaxy's response surprised everyone, including humanity. Species that had spent millennia avoiding conflict and preferring diplomatic solutions suddenly found themselves united by shared outrage at the Krell's murderous rampage. The ethereal collective materialized physical combat forms for the first time in recorded history. The peaceful Aquatic Federation deployed their massive deep space leviathans, creatures the size of cities that had been sleeping in the void between stars for thousands of years. Even the isolationist crystal mines emerged from their meditation worlds to join the fight. These ancient beings, who communicated only through pure thought and had not participated in galactic politics for 10,000 years, suddenly appeared at the edge of Krell space in ships made of living crystal. Admiral Amy Foster coordinated the final assault from the bridge of humanity's flagship, the UES Constitution. Around her, tactical displays showed the largest space battle in galactic history unfolding across dozens of star systems. Ships from 46 different species, many of whom had been enemies just days before, fought side by side against the Krell war machine. Admiral, her tactical officer, Commander Chris Murphy, reported while monitoring the battle displays. The Krell main fleet is retreating toward their core worlds, but they are using scorched earth tactics. They are destroying everything they cannot hold. The battle for Krell Prime lasted 18 hours and involved over 10,000 ships from across the galaxy. The combined fleet, led by human stealth technology and protected by Beck's disruption fields, systematically dismantled the hegemony's war machine. But the cost was enormous. Entire worlds lay in ruins. Billions had died, and whole star systems had been turned into graveyards. When Warlord Thaxmon finally surrendered, he did so personally to Commander Jake Morrison, the same human who had warned the Galactic Council about railgun weapons 3 years earlier. The meeting took place in the ruins of Thaxmon's command center on Krell Prime, surrounded by the debris of a galactic war. Your species tried to prevent this, the defeated warlord admitted through his mechanical translator. His voice carried none of the arrogance that had marked his earlier broadcasts. We monitored the council sessions from 3 years ago. You knew what these weapons could do to galactic civilization. Jake stood among the wreckage of what had once been the most powerful military facility in known space. Broken machines and shattered weapons lay everywhere. The air tasted of smoke and defeat. We tried to warn everyone, not just about the weapons themselves, but about what would happen when someone decided to use them without restraint. The aftermath of the war brought profound changes to galactic civilization. The Galactic Defense Council was completely restructured, with humanity holding permanent observer status and veto power over all weapons technology decisions. Dr. Beck's neutralization technology was freely shared with every species, creating a new doctrine of defensive cooperation that made railgun attacks impossible. President Laura Thompson addressed the reformed council 6 months after the war ended. She stood at the same podium where Jake had made his ignored warnings 3 years earlier. But now the alien delegates listened to every word with careful attention. "We have learned that advanced technology without wisdom leads to catastrophe," Laura said to the hushed assembly. "Humanity offers not just our technical expertise, but our commitment to preventing future disasters through cooperation and preparation. We will never again allow fear and pride to prevent us from hearing difficult truths." The memorial, built at Kepler Station's former orbital position, became a pilgrimage site for beings from across the galaxy. The simple monument bore inscriptions in over 1,000 languages, but they all carried the same message: in memory of those lost when warnings went unheeded. May we listen better in the future. Dr. Alan Beck, now director of the galaxy's new Defensive Technology Council, often stood before that memorial during his travels between research facilities. The weight of knowing that his discovery had nearly destroyed civilization haunted his days, but he found purpose in ensuring such weapons could never again threaten innocent life. "The universe does not care about our politics, our prejudices, or our pride," he told his diverse team of scientists from dozens of worlds during their weekly meetings. "Physics works the same way whether you are human, Krell, Vorthon, or ethereal. Our job is to make sure everyone remembers that lesson before it becomes too late to apply it." The Krell hegemony was dissolved, and its member worlds were placed under galactic supervision until they could establish peaceful governments. Many former Krell military officers joined the new Galactic Defense Force, working alongside species they had once tried to conquer. Commander Alex Turner, who had survived the desperate mission to Kronos Prime, was appointed as the first human admiral in the reformed Galactic Fleet. During the ceremony on Nexus Prime, he spoke about the price of ignoring warnings and the importance of listening to uncomfortable truths. 3 years ago, my people tried to warn this galaxy about a threat that could destroy civilization, Alex said to the assembled representatives. "We were ignored because we were young, because we were different, because our fears seemed primitive to species with advanced technology. But fear can be wisdom when it prevents greater disasters." The new galactic constitution included specific provisions requiring all member species to share weapons technology data and submit new developments to safety review. The Weapons Safety Council, headed by humans and staffed by experts from every major species, had the authority to restrict or ban technologies that posed existential threats to galactic civilization. Dr. Katie Walsh, working alongside Beck at the Defensive Technology Council, often reflected on how close they had come to complete disaster. "We created the ultimate weapon by accident," she told her students during lectures at the reformed Galactic University. "But we also learned that cooperation and shared wisdom are the only real defenses against our own destructive capabilities." The galaxy had learned its lesson, but at a terrible price measured in dead worlds and extinct species. Humanity's warnings had finally been heard, echoing across the ruins of what had once seemed like an unshakable galactic civilization. In the end, they had been right about railguns, about the dangers of ignoring physical laws, and about the importance of preventing rather than responding to existential threats. The galaxy had survived, but it would never again ignore the warnings of those who understood that advanced technology without wisdom was just a faster path to destruction. The memorial at Kepler Station continued to receive visitors from across known space, each one learning the same lesson. Sometimes the most primitive voices carry the most important truths, And the greatest tragedy is not being wrong about danger, but being right about it and not being believed until it was almost too late.